I am 76 years old, and the morning my whole life cracked open. All I wanted was $40 to put gas in the truck. My name doesn't matter yet. You'll know it soon enough. But what matters is this. I walked into the Scotiabank branch on Main Street in Antigonish, the same one I'd been walking into since before they paved the parking lot. And the teller, a young man I'd watched grow up 2 doors down from me, went pale behind the counter, looked over his shoulder for his supervisor, and said, very quietly, "Mr. Kinsella, I think you'd better come sit with us a minute." The account that was supposed to hold $214,000. My pension. The proceeds from selling the family property out past Heatherton. Every cent Rosalind and I had scraped and saved across 41 years of marriage. Had $11 and change in it. And the only other name on that account besides mine was my daughter's. Before I take you back to that Thursday in October, I want to ask you to hit subscribe because I tell stories like this one every week, and I want to know where you're watching from tonight. Put it in the comments. I read every single one, even the ones that come in at 3 in the morning from somewhere I've never heard of. Now let me take you back. That morning started the way most of my mornings had started since Rosalind passed 3 winters back. Up before the sun, the kitchen too quiet, the coffee maker grumbling on the counter, like it resented being asked to work this early too. My son Owen came by around 7, same as he did most days, let himself in through the side door because I never lock it, set a bag of groceries on the table, and started going through my pill organizer to make sure I hadn't messed it up again. "Morning, Dad," he said. "You take your blood pressure one yet?" Waiting on you to remind me, apparently. He smiled at that. Owen's 38, drives a snowplow for the county in the winters, and does odd carpentry the rest of the year. And he's had his mother's patience since he was a boy. The kind of patience that doesn't announce itself. It just shows up every morning at 7, whether you ask for it or not. He lives 15 minutes out toward Monastery with his wife and their 2 girls. And somehow, no matter how busy the season got, he was always at my kitchen table by the time the kettle whistled. My other child, my daughter, lived 3 provinces away in Calgary, Bethany, the one with the title, director of something at an oil and gas firm, a husband who wore golf shirts even in February, a house with a view of the mountains she posted about twice a year. She called on Christmas and on my birthday, and sometimes in between if she needed something signed. "The truck's making that noise again," Owen said, pouring himself coffee. "I can look at it Saturday. I'll run it by the garage myself. Need to stop at the bank anyway, get some cash for the pharmacy. Insurance is being slow on the new prescription. I can run in for you." "I'm not an invalid yet, Owen." I said it sharper than I meant to, and he just looked at me a second, the way his mother used to, then let it go. "Okay, Dad, bring your hat, it's cold out." I had no idea what was waiting for me on Main Street. The branch was near empty that time of morning. Just me, a young mother juggling a car seat carrier, and Patrick behind the counter, the boy I met, whose father used to plow my driveway before the county hired Owen. I slid my bank card across. "Just need 40 out, Patrick. Maybe 60 in case the dog food's gone up again." He started typing, then he stopped, typed again slower this time, and I watched something change behind his eyes. "Mr. Kinsella," he said, "can you give me 1 second? Card acting up? It's been doing that." He didn't answer right away. He looked at his screen a long moment, then he came around the counter himself, which a teller doesn't usually do, and pulled a chair over for me. "I think you should sit down." I laughed, the way you do when something sounds too foolish to be serious. "Patrick, it's me. What's going on?" "There's $11.40 in the account," he said. "The big one, the savings." The words didn't arrange themselves into anything I could use. "That's not right. There should be over 200,000 in there." "Mr. Kinsella, please, just sit." I gripped the counter instead. A manager was called. Printouts came, 3 pages, still warm from the machine, and laid in front of me like evidence at a trial I hadn't known I was standing for. Rows of transfers, large ones, building over 4 months, and beside every single one, the same name. Bethany Kinsella Krause, my daughter. The branch manager, a woman named Fiona McAllister, who I'd known maybe a decade through the Legion fundraisers, watched my face while I read it, and then she asked me the question I'd hear in my sleep for the next month. "Mr. Kinsella, do you recognize these withdrawals? Did I recognize them?" Bethany is 54, sharp the way a good knife is sharp, the kind of sharp that's useful right up until it isn't. She'd left Antigonish at 19 and never really came back. Not in any way that counted. Director-level job, a husband named Cole, who shook your hand like he was trying to win something. A house in the kind of Calgary neighborhood where the driveways are heated. At Christmas, she'd sweep in, hug everybody for the camera, post a photo with the caption something about treasuring family, and be gone again before the turkey was carved. Bethany's doing so well, my sister-in-law Pam used to say at every family supper, and then quieter, like it was a kindness she was doing me. Such a shame about Owen, plowing roads at his age, never really went anywhere. It always sat wrong in my chest, that talk, because it was Owen who'd been there. Owen who sat with his mother through every round of chemo, who drove 2 hours each way every second Tuesday, so she wouldn't have to do it alone. Bethany couldn't get away from a sales conference. 18 months back, after I'd had a small stroke that left my left hand a little slow on cold mornings, Bethany had sat me down at this very kitchen table and told me it made sense for her to go on my account. Just in case, Dad, so somebody can handle things if you can't. The banking, the insurance, all that paperwork that gets complicated. You don't need to put that on Owen, he's got enough with the girls and the plow route. I'd been grateful. God help me, I'd been grateful. She was the sharp one, the one with the head for finance, she'd told me, patting my good hand. Let Owen worry about the house and your appointments. Leave the money side to me. Standing in that branch with the printouts trembling slightly in my hands, I remembered something I'd been too busy to think hard about. A voicemail from Desmond Pruitt, the lawyer who'd handled Rosalind's estate and most of our paperwork for going on 20 years. Harold, give me a call when you get a chance, it's regarding your accounts. I'd let it sit on the machine for almost 3 weeks, assuming it was nothing. I was starting to understand I'd been a fool. I drove home with the printouts on the passenger seat, glancing at them at every stop sign on Church Street, like the numbers might rearrange themselves into something kinder. They didn't. At my own kitchen table, I did arithmetic I never thought I'd have to do at 76. That account wasn't extra money, it was everything. The cardiologist in Antigonish, the trips to the specialist in Halifax, the property taxes, the furnace that was on its last legs, the little cushion that let me stay in this house, instead of ending up on a wait list for a long-term care bed somewhere 2 counties over, sharing a room with a stranger, and being called dear by people too rushed to learn my name. I thought about Rosalind, what she'd have said if she'd seen what one of our children had done. My hand shook calling Bethany. Straight to voicemail, I called again. Voicemail. I texted slow, one finger at a time the way Owen had taught me. Call me, it's about the account. Urgent. Nothing for an hour. Then my phone buzzed, but it wasn't Bethany. It was Pam. Harold, sweetheart. Heard you've had some money trouble. Bethany's worried sick about you and Owen. Let us know if there's anything we can do. Zoe. I read it 3 times. Bethany's worried about me and Owen. I set the phone face down on the table and looked at the wallpaper Rosalind had picked out the summer before she got sick. The question wasn't only where the money had gone. The question was what exactly my daughter had already told the rest of the family, and why my son's name had been dragged into it. That night, after Owen had gone home, I went through Rosalind's old writing desk in the spare room. She'd kept everything in there. Every warranty card, every birthday card, receipts for appliances we'd thrown out a decade ago. Near the bottom of the second drawer, I found an envelope that looked far too new to belong with the rest. Crisp white, a clean letterhead. Pruitt and Associates, Barristers and Solicitors. Postmarked 4 months back. Addressed to me, unopened. Bethany handled the mail whenever she visited, sorting it into neat little piles on the counter, the way she did everything. Organized and efficient, and somehow this one envelope had ended up filed away in a drawer instead of in my hands. The same Desmond Pruitt from the voicemail. My heart was going harder than it should have for an old man sitting in a quiet room. Why would Desmond be writing me now? And how had a sealed letter from my own lawyer ended up at the bottom of my dead wife's desk? The phone rang. Owen. Dad, you sound funny. Everything all right? I nearly told him everything right there, but something held my tongue. If Bethany had truly done what those printouts said, and if she'd already started telling people Owen was somehow involved, I needed to understand the whole shape of it before I said a single word that could be twisted around. I'm fine, son. Just going through your mother's old letters. Got a bit sentimental, that's all. Want me to come back over? No. Get some sleep. You do enough as it is. I hung up and sat a long while with that unopened envelope in my hands, my thumb resting along the seal. I didn't open it that night. I couldn't have told you why. Except maybe that part of me wasn't ready to learn what kind of trouble had been growing under my own roof while I wasn't looking. Tomorrow, I told myself. Tomorrow I'll open it. By morning, the envelope was still sealed on the desk. I'd like to say I was being patient. Truth is, I was scared. Over coffee, I made a decision. I wasn't going to phone the whole family hollering about thieves. If I did that, Bethany would spin it before I'd even hung up, turn me into a confused old man who couldn't track his own banking. She'd already started laying that groundwork. I could feel it in the way Pam's text had been worded. The worried daughter, the slipping father. No, I was going to understand every dollar, every date, every signature first. I spread the statements out and read them properly, with my reading glasses on, slow. Half of it I didn't understand. Authorized signatory, joint tenancy, terms from a world I'd handed over to Bethany like a fool 2 years back. But I knew two people who could walk me through it, Fiona at the bank, and Desmond Pruitt. There was one more thing that shamed me even to think. Bethany had spent weeks, it seemed, quietly making this look like it could have been Owen's doing. Or at least making sure nobody assumed it was her, and Owen wasn't even on that account. Owen had never once asked me for $1 in his life. Owen was the one who used to say, "Dad, you should keep a closer eye on the money side, just to be safe," and I'd waved him off. "Bethany's got it handled," I'd told him. "I don't want a war with my own daughter," I said out loud to my empty kitchen. "I just want the truth." I meant it. Sitting there with my cold coffee and a stack of paper that wouldn't add up, I thought the worst part was the money. I had no way of knowing I was wrong about that. Fiona met me at the branch during her lunch and walked me into a small back office with statements spread across the table. Owen drove me in and waited out in the lobby with his coffee. I wasn't ready to show him yet. "I'm not supposed to give financial advice," Fiona said, "but I can explain what's on the page, please." She tapped a line near the top I'd skimmed right past. Joint account holder, Bethany Kinsella Krause. When Bethany was added 2 years ago, Fiona said, she wasn't added as a power of attorney or a helper. She was added as a full joint owner. Same rights as you, Mr. Kinsella. But it's my pension. My money from the property. Doesn't matter legally once it's in a joint account like this one. The law in Nova Scotia treats it as though she has equal claim to the whole balance. She can withdraw any amount anytime. She doesn't need your sign-off. The little room felt smaller all of a sudden, so she didn't steal anything, technically. On paper, no. She withdrew from an account she legally co-owned. A man works his whole life, and his own child can empty it out, and the law just shrugs at it. I looked at the rows of transfers, $2,200, then $5,800, then $14,000, climbing slow and careful, the way you'd bleed an old man's account if you were hoping he wouldn't notice right away. She told me she was going on the account to handle the paperwork, I said. Fiona didn't say anything to that. She just looked at me, and I understood. The paperwork had never been the point. I felt it before I understood it. The way news moves through a town this size, quiet as a draft under a door. At the Tim Hortons on College Street, where I've had my coffee most mornings for 30 years, Earl Brennan from the curling club caught my eye from his booth, then got suddenly very interested in his double-double. The girl behind the counter, who I'd watched grow up, didn't say her usual "Good morning, Mr. Kinsella." It was Pam who finally said it out loud, all sugar and concern over the phone that afternoon. "Harold, I have to ask. Bethany told us about the account, about the money being gone." My stomach turned over. "What exactly did Bethany tell you?" "That it's mostly gone. And that," a pause, "the kind people take when they're enjoying themselves a little too much. That Owen's been taking it. From you. She said she found out and she's heartbroken, but she felt the family deserved the truth." For a second I couldn't get a breath in. She hadn't just taken my money. She'd built a story around it and handed the role of the thief to her own brother. Owen, who'd never once taken a penny from me. Owen, who'd shown up every single day of his life. "Keep listening to yourself, Pam," I said, and I was proud of how level it came out. "Owen hasn't touched a cent of mine. He isn't even on the account. Bethany is." A silence. Then gentle, the way you'd humor a confused old man. "Oh, Harold. Of course you'd take Owen's side. You always have." That was the moment I understood the truth on its own wouldn't be enough. I was going to have to prove it, in front of everyone who mattered in this town. Bethany finally called back 4 nights later, 9 o'clock, her name lighting up my phone like nothing had happened. Her voice came warm and smooth, the voice she used on clients. "Dad? I hear you've been working yourself up over something. The account's empty, Bethany. My account. I know, it's a mess. The bank's been a nightmare." A sigh performed for my benefit. "Listen, Dad, you don't need to be digging through all that. It's complicated and it's not good for your heart. I'm not digging. I'm reading the statements. Your name's on every transfer. A pause. The warmth dropped a couple of degrees. I'm a joint owner. I have every right to manage that money. You don't understand how any of this works, Dad. You never did. Mom always handled the financing. Then help me understand. Where did $200,000 go? She didn't answer that directly. Instead, her voice went low, soft, which was worse than if she'd shouted. You want to be careful here, Dad. You start making accusations at your age, with your memory the way it's been since the stroke. People are going to start wondering if you're still all there. Owen included. You don't want them thinking you can't manage anymore. You know what comes after that. There it was. Not my daughter. A threat wearing my daughter's voice. And what she was threatening me with was the home. The drive out past Sherbrooke to the only facility with a bed open, shared rooms, a wait list, the kind of place where they call you dear, because they haven't got the time to learn your name. I'm not making anything up, I said. I'm reading numbers off a page. Get some sleep, Dad. We'll talk when you're thinking more clearly. The line went dead. I stood in my dark kitchen with the phone still warm in my palm and felt something settle in me, cold and certain. I'd crossed a line I couldn't walk back. The only direction left was forward. Pruitt and Associates was above the hardware store on Main, 2 rooms with a coffee maker older than my truck. Desmond was a thin man near my own age, reading glasses pushed up on his forehead. Harold Kinsella, he said, settling behind his desk. I've been trying to reach you for months. I know. I'm sorry, I only just found the letter. I told him why. The drawer, the mail Bethany handled, the empty account. He listened without interrupting, fingers laced together. When I was done, he sat quiet a long moment. I can't tell you everything your late wife and I discussed, he said finally. Privilege survives her, you understand. Rosalind? What's Rosalind got to do with any of this? He took his glasses off, folded them slowly. Before she passed, your wife came to see me more than once. She was worried, Harold, about Bethany, about how Bethany handled money, and about putting her on that account in the first place. My chest went tight. She never said a word to me. She didn't want to turn you against your own daughter on a feeling. So she did some quiet things instead while she still could. Rosalind. 41 years of marriage, and she'd been guarding my back from the very end of it without me ever knowing. Protect me how? He smiled but didn't answer. That part isn't mine to tell yet. It's hers. Whose is it then? Your wife's instructions said it would come when the day was right. I think the day's come, Harold. Give me a little time to put it together properly. I left his office with more questions than I'd walked in with, but for the first time in a week I felt something other than dread. My Rosalind had seen this coming. Even now, she was still looking after me. I went back to the branch and asked them to freeze the account. Fiona was sympathetic and immovable. It's joint, Mr. Kinsella. Either holder can access it. I can't lock your daughter out without a court order. A court order. The phrase sat in my mouth like a stone I couldn't swallow. I tried the family next, called my nephew Travis, a level-headed enough fellow, and asked him to just sit with me and look at the statements. He hemmed and hawed. Uncle Harold, I really don't want to get stuck in the middle of this. Bethany says you've been a bit confused lately, that it's upset you, and Owen's not helping things. Travis, I've got the papers right in front of me. Her name's on every line. I'm sure there's an explanation, he said. There usually is, and just like that another door swung shut. Meanwhile, the bills didn't stop. The pharmacy called about a balance. The oil company wanted a deposit before they'd top up the tank with winter coming on. I covered what I could from the little I had in checking, watching the numbers shrink, doing the grim arithmetic of how long an old man could hold out. 2 months, maybe 3, if I was careful. Worst of all, I watched it land on Owen. People at the Legion went quiet when he walked in. His wife mentioned someone had said something at the school pickup line. He came by one evening, quiet, and asked me straight, Dad, did Bethany tell people I took your money? I couldn't lie to him. When I told him the truth, he didn't get angry. He just put a hand on my shoulder and said, then we sorted out together. That steadied me more than anything had in weeks. I wasn't fighting this alone, but I still had no real proof, and the family had mostly already made up its mind. If you've ever handed something over to a child you trusted and felt the ground shift out from under you, you know the particular kind of cold I felt sitting in that bank parking lot. If this is hitting something in you, go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss how it ends. And tell me down in the comments, did you ever have to stand up to your own family? I want to hear it. Now let me tell you about the phone call that changed everything. It came from Cole, Bethany's husband. In 20 years of marriage to my daughter, Cole had never once called me on his own. He was all firm handshakes and stories about his golf handicap, the kind of man who corrected your grammar at Thanksgiving. So when his name lit up my screen, I nearly let it go to voicemail. Harold, his voice was tight. I need you to back off, whatever you're doing here. You're putting Bethany through hell. Me putting her through hell. I almost laughed. Cole, she emptied her own father's account. She's under more pressure than you know. You have no idea what this year's been like for us. What kind of pressure? He caught himself a beat too late. The business. Some investments that went sideways. We've had setbacks, the kind that follow a man home and sit at his dinner table. What setbacks, Cole? A long silence. When he spoke again, his voice had cracked at the edges. We're behind on the house, months behind. The bank sent the real letter, the kind with the lawyer's name on it. A shaky breath. Bethany couldn't stand anyone finding out. The club, her colleagues. So she told herself it was temporary, a loan. She'd put it all back before you ever noticed. He stopped himself, but it was too late. The picture snapped into focus. Bethany wasn't a greedy woman helping herself for sport. She was drowning, and my account had been the last bit of air in the room. It didn't make any of it right, nothing made it right. She'd robbed her own father and tried to hand the blame to her brother. But it made her human, and somehow that was worse. Cole, I said, why are you really calling me? He didn't answer. He just hung up. 2 days later, the invitations went out. Bethany was throwing me a party, my 77th birthday, at the Lobster Pound out on the harbor, the nicest place in town, the kind folks book for weddings and anniversaries. She'd invited everyone, aunts, uncles, half the legion, old friends from St. Ninian's church. I found out the way I found out everything now, secondhand. Pam mentioned it on the phone, assuming I already knew. Isn't it lovely? Bethany sparing no expense for her father. A devoted girl, throwing a party with money she couldn't account for, in front of every person whose opinion still mattered in this town. I understood exactly what it was, a stage, a chance for her to stand up in front of everyone as the generous daughter, the reliable one, and Owen, if he came up at all, the brother people had started quietly wondering about. That night Bethany called, smooth as ever. Dad, about the party, I think it'd be best if Owen sat this one out. He's been so worked up about everything. I don't want a scene on your big day. It's my birthday, I said. My son will be there. Dad, please. People are already a little worried about your judgment. Don't make it harder than it needs to be. She'd weaponized my own age against me, plain as that. After she hung up, I sat a long while at Rosalind's desk. Then I called Desmond and told him about the party, about the Lobster Pound, about all of it. I'll have everything ready by then, he said. And if you'll allow it, I'd like to be there myself. At the party? In the room, when the time comes. I didn't know yet what Rosalind had left behind for me, but I was about to find out in front of everyone. The next morning, Owen drove me to Desmond's office. I'd told him everything by then. The account, the joint ownership, Bethany's threats, Cole's confession. He'd gone quiet in the truck a minute, then squared his shoulders. Okay, Dad, what do we do? Desmond met us at the door, brought us coffee, opened a thick leather folder and laid his hands flat across it. Your wife was a careful woman, Harold, he said. Smarter than the two of us put together. Don't I know it? About 7 months before she passed, Rosalind came to me. She'd watched Bethany handle money for years, and it worried her. She said, and I'm quoting her, Desmond, I won't be around to mind the henhouse. Lock the door for me. He looked away a moment. So we did some things. They've been sitting in this drawer, waiting in case they were ever needed. He looked back up at me. Steady. They're needed now. What things? He shook his head. Gentle. On the day, in front of everyone. Rosalind wanted it that way. Out in the open, where no one could whisper it away after the fact. He glanced at Owen. She was very clear that her son should be standing right beside you when it happened. Owen reached over and took my hand. I'm not going to that party to fight my own daughter, I said, my voice coming out rougher than I meant. I'm going to clear my son's name, and I'm going to stop being treated like a confused old fool who can't mind his own house. Desmond nodded. Then bring your son, the good one. He almost smiled. And let your wife do the rest. The Lobster Pound glowed that evening. White tablecloths, a band doing soft jazz, a banner across the back wall that read Happy 77th, Harold in gold letters. Bethany had spared nothing. About 35 people crowded the private dining room. Every aunt, every cousin, faces I'd known my whole life, all dressed up and smiling. I came in with Owen at my arm. The conversation didn't stop exactly, but it stumbled. I caught the ripple of it across the room, the soft hisses of whispers behind raised hands. Heads turning toward Owen, eyes sliding away again. Bethany saw us from across the room and crossed the floor fast, smile bright, eyes hard. Dad. She kissed my cheek, then low just for me. I asked you to leave Owen at home. He's my son, I said quietly. Both of you are mine, I brought him. She straightened, scanning the room, recalculating, then the public smile snapped back into place. Everyone made it, she announced. Wonderful. Family is everything, isn't it? People raised their glasses. The band played on. Bethany moved through the crowd like a woman working a campaign, shaking hands, refilling drinks, the devoted daughter hosting the perfect night. Owen settled me at the head table and sat close beside me. Pam gave him a thin, pitying smile from across the room. Earl Brennan wouldn't look at either of us. In the back corner, almost hidden behind a coat rack, sat a thin man in a gray suit with a leather folder resting on his knees. Desmond. He caught my eye and gave the smallest nod. Steady, Dad, Owen murmured. Wait for it. Bethany tapped a fork against her glass and stepped to the front of the room. Champagne flute raised high. The room went quiet, and I felt the whole night lean forward toward whatever was coming. Thank you all for coming. 77, can you believe it? Warm murmurs. Someone said, "Hear, hear." My father has given this family everything, she went on, her voice swelling. And family means responsibility. It means caring for our parents when they can't fully care for themselves anymore. Especially their finances, when their judgment isn't quite what it used to be. She let that hang a moment, her eyes touching mine, soft and sad, the loving daughter worried about her failing father. It hasn't been easy lately, she said, lowering her voice into something grave. Some of you know there have been concerns about Dad's accounts, about someone close to him who hasn't acted in his best interest. A pause, heavy and deliberate. I've tried to handle it quietly to protect this family, but I think it's time we were honest about who's been taking advantage of him. The whispers started, and this time nearly every head in the room turned, slow and certain, toward Owen. I felt my son go rigid beside me. His hand found mine under the table and gripped it hard. 35 faces, people who'd known my children their whole lives, looking at my good son like he was something scraped off a boot. I stood up. It took me a moment, my knees aren't what they were, and Owen rose with me to steady my arm. The room froze. Dad, Bethany said, smooth as ever. Sit down. This isn't the time. You're right about one thing, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I felt. Someone close to me took my money, and I think it's time this whole family knew exactly who, in black and white. I nodded toward the back of the room. Desmond stood and walked forward with the leather folder. Bethany's eyes locked on it, and the color went straight out of her face. He set the pages down on the white tablecloth, right in the center of the room, where everyone could see. My name is Desmond Pruitt, he said. I've been this family's lawyer for almost 20 years. With Harold's permission, I'm going to read from his bank statements. You're welcome to pass them around after. This is ridiculous, Bethany said. Dad's confused. Nobody needs to. June 14th. Desmond read, calm as a Sunday sermon. Transfer out, $11,000. Recipient, Bethany Kinsella Krause. The room went very still. June 28th, 18,000. Bethany Kinsella Krause. He turned a page. July 11th, 14,000. July 25th, 26,000. Each name landed like a stone dropped into still water. I watched it move across their faces, confusion, then doubt, then something colder. Pam's hand rose to her mouth. Earl was staring at Bethany now, not at Owen. It's a joint account, Bethany said louder. I'm a co-owner. This is legal. I had every right. No one's saying it was illegal, Bethany, I said quietly, the way Rosalind used to when she meant business. I'm saying it happened. These aren't accusations. These are dates and dollar amounts. Read them yourselves. Desmond slid the folder down the table. A cousin opened it, then another leaned in. I watched the pages travel hand to hand, and I watched the story Bethany had spent months building come apart, line by line. You told them it was Owen, I said. You told this whole town your brother was robbing me while your name sat on every single withdrawal. That's not. Bethany looked around the room and found no friendly faces left. You don't understand the situation, Dad. Then explain it, said Travis, grim now, holding a page. Explain this. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Into that silence, Desmond said, There's more. Quite a bit more. He drew a second set of papers from the folder, older, softened with handling. Some of you knew Rosalind Kinsella, he said. The room quieted further at her name. 7 months before she passed, she came to my office. She was sharp as a blade that day, and she was worried about exactly this. She instructed me to do two things, and to keep them sealed until they were needed. Bethany had gone gray. Mom, what did Mom do first? Desmond said, on your mother's instruction, we drew up a revocation. 60 days before she died, your joint ownership of that account was legally terminated. You were removed. The bank was notified in writing. A gasp somewhere in the room, which means every withdrawal I just read aloud, every single one dated this year, long after that revocation, was made by someone with no legal right whatsoever to that account. That is not a family disagreement. That is theft, and the courts can address it as such. Bethany's mouth worked silently, staring at the dates, at a trap she'd walked straight into without ever seeing the floor. Second, Desmond went on, your mother placed the proceeds of the Heatherton property and a reserve for your father's care into a protected trust beyond either child's reach. He paused, and she named the trustee, the one she chose to guard her husband's care, should the day ever come. He turned and looked at Owen. She named her son. 35 heads swung toward my boy. Owen froze beside me. He hadn't known. I saw it on his face, pure shock. He looked at me and I could only shake my head. I hadn't known either. Then Owen looked across the room at his sister, and when he spoke, his voice was soft and steady. Mom knew Bethany. She knew all along. For a moment Bethany just stood there, the champagne flute still in her hand. Then her composure cracked all at once, like ice giving way in early spring. You don't understand, she said, and the polish had gone clean out of her voice. I was going to put it back. Every dollar, I just needed time. The market turned on us. The house. Cole's investments. We were drowning. You let them believe it was your brother, Pam said, lowering her hand, her face hard now. You called me and sat in my kitchen and told me Owen was robbing his own father. I panicked. From your 77-year-old father, who needs that money to live, Travis said. Bethany turned to me, pleading. Dad, you can fix this. Tell them you always loved Owen more, that Mom set this whole thing up to make me look. Stop. My voice came out louder than it had in years. The room went still. Your mother set nothing up to make you look like anything. She protected me from you, and she was right too. At the back, Cole had come in late and stood frozen by the door, his face the color of ash. He didn't say a word in her defense. He just looked at the floor. Part of me wanted to let her drown right there in front of everyone. God forgive me, part of me wanted exactly that. But Rosalind's voice was in my head, and that wasn't the man she'd married. You're still my daughter, I said. I won't see you in prison if there's another road. But you will pay back every cent through Desmond, on paper, and you will never touch my money or your brother's name again. The party was over. Everyone knew it. The band kept playing its cheerful tune through the wall. Absurd now, like music at the wrong funeral. Bethany set down her glass, her hand trembling, looked around the room one last time for an ally, and found none. Then she walked out, Cole a few steps behind her, and the door of the Lobster Pound swung shut. No one spoke. Then I did something I'd been needing to do for years. I gripped the table edge, steadied myself on Owen's shoulder, and stood as tall as my old back would allow, so the whole room had to look at me. I want to say something about my son, I said. The room held its breath. For 3 years, this boy has driven me to every appointment. He's fixed my roof, sat with me, so I wasn't alone in this house at night. He did it while half this family called him the one who never amounted to much. My voice wavered, then held. He amounted to everything. You all just weren't looking. Owen was crying. So was I, and I won't pretend otherwise. Pam was crying too. Travis came over and put a heavy hand on Owen's shoulder. We owe you an apology, Owen, every one of us. One by one, the faces that had turned away from him at the curling club turned back, not with pity this time, but something closer to shame and respect. In the weeks after, Desmond moved fast. He filed an emergency application, and a judge froze what remained of any account Bethany could still reach. The protected trust was already locked tight, Rosalind's doing, and it held. We sat in his office, Owen and I, while Desmond laid the options out on his desk. You could press charges, Harold. The withdrawals after the revocation are unauthorized. A Crown prosecutor would have a real file. I sat with that a long moment, then shook my head. She's still my child. Rosalind would never forgive me for putting her in a cell. I want the money back, and I want her name off my accounts. That's all. So Desmond built a different road, a structured repayment agreement, binding, in exchange for no charges being laid. Facing the alternative, Bethany signed every page. Not all the money was there. A good portion was simply gone, swallowed by debt and bad investments. But between the trust Rosalind had protected and the assets Bethany was forced to liquidate, The second vehicle, a timeshare in Arizona, the boat Cole had bought to impress people who didn't care. She repaid close to $90,000 on a schedule Desmond keeps enforcing. Combined with the trust, it was enough. Enough for the medications, the cardiologist, the home care aide who comes twice a week now, and for me to stay right where I belong, in my own bed, in the house Rosalind and I built our whole life around. That facility out past Sherbrooke never happened. Bethany and Cole lost the house in Calgary anyway. The repayment took whatever the bank hadn't already claimed. In a town the size of ours, word travels faster than the morning paper. Her colleagues found out. The club she'd nearly bankrupted herself trying to impress quietly let her membership lapse. I won't pretend I didn't grieve it. She's still my daughter. I taught her to skate on the pond behind the old property. I walked her down the aisle at St. Ninian's. About a month after the party, a letter came, her handwriting shaky on the envelope. Inside, one page. She didn't ask for anything. She said she was sorry, and that she'd understand if I never wanted to see her again. I read it twice, then I set it in Rosalind's desk drawer, in with the old receipts and a photograph of the two of us. Young, standing on the porch of the Heatherton house. I haven't answered it yet. Some wounds a man has to sit with a while before he knows what to say. But I keep it. That counts for something. One gray afternoon there was a knock at the door, and Cole stood on my porch with his hat in both hands, no firm handshake left in him at all. I left her, Harold, he said before I could speak. After it all came out, I should have stopped her a long time ago, and I didn't. He swallowed. I came to say I'm sorry, to you and to Owen. I knew, and I helped her hide it. I looked at him a long moment, then stepped back and held the door open. Coffee's on, I said. Owen's in the kitchen. You can say it to him yourself. The hardest part wasn't Bethany, it was everyone else. The same relatives who'd looked through Owen at the rink now couldn't do enough for him. Pam started calling every few days. Cousins who hadn't spoken to either of us in years sent cards. Earl Brennan stopped me outside church and gripped my hand, told me how sorry he was, how he should have known better. I'll be honest, there was a stubborn part of me that wanted to be cold to all of them. They'd believed Bethany over my Owen without a second thought. But cold doesn't heat in an old man's house, and it wasn't who Rosalind raised me to be. So when Pam came by with a casserole and a long, teary apology, I let her say it. I made her tea, and then I told her gently, I'm glad you see it different now, Pam. But I wish you'd ask me before you decided Owen was a thief. She started to defend herself, then stopped. You're right, Harold. I'm ashamed. I know you are, and we're all right. But this family is done treating Owen like the one to blame. He's earned better than that from all of us. That was the line I drew with every one of them, polite but firm in the ground. Some understood. Travis became a real friend, comes by Saturdays now to watch the Habs game with me. Others drifted off, uncomfortable around an old man who'd stopped needing their good opinion. I find I live with that just fine. Owen, though. Owen held his head a little higher in this town now, and it was a long time coming. The trust did one thing I hadn't expected. Desmond insisted on a fair allowance for Owen, payment for the work of caring for me. Caregivers get paid, Harold, he said. There's no shame in it. Rosalind wanted it written in that way. For the first time in years, Owen had a little breathing room, and he did something he hadn't let himself dream about in a long while. He leased the old hardware bay 2 doors down from the Tim Hortons, the one that had sat empty since I was a younger man, and started a small woodworking shop, the kind of thing he'd always wanted and never had the time or the money to chase. I go most mornings. He sets me up by the front window with a coffee, black, the way Rosalind could never talk me out of, and I watch Main Street wake up while he works the lathe in the back. Travis comes by Saturdays. Some mornings my chest aches a little, and I take my pills with the coffee and think about how close I came to a room 2 counties over. Then I look up at my son, sawdust on his sleeves, humming some tune his mother used to hum, and I let it go. Even Cole comes by sometimes, on his way to the new job he's got out near Sherbrooke. Even Pam, who always leaves too big a tip in the jar by the till, like she's still apologizing. Sometimes I wonder if Bethany will ever walk through that door. I haven't decided what I'll do if she does. For now, that door is ours to open or not. She moved away that winter, took a position 2 provinces over. Somewhere nobody knows the story of the lobster pound. She keeps up the repayment, mostly. Desmond chases her when she doesn't. That's enough for now. The money comes into the trust slow and steady. She sends a card now and then. My birthday, Christmas, short notes in that shaky hand. I read them, and I keep them in Rosalind's drawer with the rest. We don't talk much. The wound's still there, just quieter now. The way old wounds get when you've collected a few. People ask me sometimes, the ones who know the story, whether I ever wanted real revenge, whether watching my daughter fall apart in that room felt good. The honest answer is no, not the way they mean it. Desmond told me the criminal case would have been solid. I could have ruined her completely, made sure the whole province knew what she'd done. There were nights, early on, when an angry old man wanted exactly that, but I figured something out along the way. If I'd done it out of spite, if I'd lied or schemed or torn her down, just to feel the satisfaction of it, I'd have become a little bit like her, and I'd have lost the one thing this whole mess never managed to take from me, the man Rosalind married. I didn't win because I was louder or crueler or cleverer. An old man isn't any of those things anymore. I won because the truth was on my side, and because my wife was smarter than all of us put together, and because I had a son who never once stopped showing up. Here's what I'd tell another father if he were sitting across from me at that little shop window. Don't wait. Don't wait to tell your good child that you see them. I let this family call my Owen, the one who never amounted to anything for years, and I let it stand because speaking up felt like stirring a pot best left alone. That silence cost him more than any amount of money could. Love, real love, isn't letting your family walk all over the people who actually show up, and calling it loyalty. You can love a daughter and still refuse to let her rob you blind. You can forgive a person and still lock the door behind them. It took me 77 years to learn that. I hope it doesn't take you as long. This morning the light came through the shop window the same way it came through my kitchen. That Thursday in October, pale and slow and ordinary. The kind of light a man doesn't notice until everything's already changed. Owen ran his hand along a fresh-cut board, blew the dust off, and brought it over to show me, the way he used to bring me his school projects. "Here you go, Dad," he said. "What do you think?" I looked up at my son, 38 years old, sawdust in his hair, his mother's patience in every line of his face. "It's good work, Owen. Your mother would be proud. I'm proud." He had to look out the window a second. Then he sat down across from me with his own coffee. A long time ago, a teller I'd watched grow up looked at me across a counter and told me to sit down, like the floor was about to fall out from under my whole life, and it was. Everything I thought I knew about my family came apart in that little back room. I'm glad I sat down, I mean that. Because when I finally stood back up, past the lies, past the whispers, past my own stubborn pride, I knew, for the first time in 77 years, exactly which of my children had been my home all along, and I'll never let him forget that I know it.